Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. So today I have my update for my No Pan Left Behind project. So this is a project that I have just started this year. I have done this in the past, but this is the first kind of official year that I'm filming this. I have the goal set for myself to use every single shade of eyeshadow in my collection at least one time. It is a very ambitious goal. I have over 1,000 shades of eyeshadow in my collection. I am quite honestly not sure if I'm going to be able to get there or not, but this is update number 2, and I'm going to go through all of the shades that I used in February and mark off any new ones that I used. I feel like I was trying to reach for new palettes, so I am hopeful that I have a fairly good update today, but we will see. So a lot of comments on my last video wanted to see pictures of the palettes as I talk about them, and that is such a great idea. I should have done it for the last video, but I am going to start it for this video. I take progress pictures at the beginning of each year of my palette so I can see how they change each year. So those are the pictures I'm going to be using. They will be popped up in the corner, and I will go through my uses on all of the palettes that I used this past month. So we are going to be starting right at the top here with my Modern Renaissance palette. So I have used a handful of shades from here, starting with the very first one, Tempera. Then we have Vermeer, Blonde Fresco, jumping over to Love Letter. And then moving down to the next row, I have used Red Ochre and Venetian Red. So a handful of shades from there, better than it was last month with not using any. Alright, then we are skipping my BH Nouveau Neutrals again and moving on to my ColourPop It's a Princess Thing palette. And I have at least one new shade, possibly a couple. So I have reached for the shade Juju here. And I also got a use on Enchanted Rose, so we can mark that one off as well. And that is where my uses sit for that palette. We are going to be skipping A Whole New World. I haven't used any new shades since last month. But moving down to my Wet n Wild Game Over palette, I have used this first shade here. And I believe that is my only new shade from this one so far. I have 3 more shades and then I've completed that palette. I think I could definitely do that by the next update. I am going to set that goal for myself right now, and hopefully I will have my first palette 100% completed. So moving over to my Maybelline Lemonade Craze, I have reached for a few new shades from this one. So I have reached for Lemonade Craze here. I have also reached for Main Squeeze, which is this big guy, and Citrus. And I have reached for this end one as well, Sweet Tea. Then moving on to Midnight Masquerade, I only have one new addition so far, and that is Merryweather. So not doing great on that palette, but we'll get there. And then I have not used the rest of these palettes yet this year. So moving on to the next page, we are skipping quite a few palettes and going to my Princess and the Frog palette. So I've only reached for 2 shades so far from here, and that is this one here and Tiana. So only 2 from there, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Alright, moving down to my Rude Cosmetics Roaring 20s Reckless palette. I can add Glitzy. I think that is actually going to be the only one that I get to add for this palette, but it's one additional one I haven't had. So next page, again, I'm going to be moving on to my Be Bella Daisy Days palette, and I have used this one a handful of times, so we have a small handful of shades to check off, which is amazing. So starting up in the corner, I've used Dawn, In the Meadow, and Loyal Love. I've used She's a Beauty, Goddess of Love, Roots, Rustic Sienna, and Canary. And then I have used Dusk and Brassy. So that palette is actually doing pretty well. That one is in my Pan Those Eyeshadows currently. So hopefully before I roll that shade out, I can get even more uses on this palette. But I'm pretty happy with how that one is looking. Moving down to my Huda Beauty Nude Obsessions Light palette, I have used this first shade, the second shade, the fourth, and the fifth. So a little square of shades there. So that is all for this page, unfortunately. I have so many unchecked boxes right now, but we will get there, I promise. I am going to really start trying to focus in on new shades and new palettes to reach for. So we can move on to my IBY Boho palette. I have reached for Moon Swoon, Wild at Heart, and Midnight Magic. And then onto Sigma Enchanted, I have reached for Quartz, Budding, Innocent, and Loam. And then on the next column, or the next row, I've reached for Moonglade. Again, I think that is going to be it for this page, so we will move on and start with my Nabla Poison Garden palette. I've only reached for a few shades in here so far, but I've reached for Berry Bite. I have reached for Zen and Rosita. So only 3 from there. And then moving over to my I Heart Revolution Tweety palette, I have 3 shades from here as well. So that is Escape, Nest, and Sing. And once again, we are turning the page. Still a ton of boxes left on that one. And we are going to go to my Pacifica Purple Nudes palette. So I've reached for Purple Rain, Urchin, and Moonray. Just that one. So again, only 3 shades from there, but I'm working on it. Then moving down to my Roaring Twenties Excessive palette, I have reached for a few shades from here as well. And this one down at the bottom. I reach for a couple palettes each time I use my makeup, so I'm only reaching for a small handful of shades every time I do my makeup from each palette, but I hopefully will start expanding those shades out. Alright, next we can move on to my ColourPop Wild Child palette. Reached for 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I know that is all on this page, and we will have one more palette to mark off from, and that is my Chicago Speakeasy from Nomad. So I have used 1, 2, 3, and 4 from there. So those are all of the additional shades I have used this past month. I'm going to count them up and then get my grand total for you all. Alright, so here you can see how I did on update 1. So I had 80 shades used out of 1,079. I thankfully have not brought any new palettes into my collection. I am kind of on a no buy or low buy. I am trying really hard not to bring new eyeshadow palettes into my collection. I'm not going to stop myself if there's a palette I really want, but I am trying to be more conscious about what I'm bringing into my collection. So moving on to this past update, I have used an additional 59 shades. So I am at 139 out of 1,079, which is a total of 12.88%. We have gotten into double digits, which is amazing, but we are still a long ways away from getting anywhere near 100% of my goal. And once again, I have not used any of my palettes 100% of the shades, so I am still at 0 out of 77 for that one. So that is where this update is going to leave off. I am not really on track to use 100% of my shades by the end of the year. I think when I did the math, I needed about 90 shades per month, 90 new shades per month, and obviously I am not anywhere near that, so it is going to take some real dedicated effort on my part to get those uses. I will say I am not reaching for makeup every day. I'm really only reaching for it if I'm going out, and for work I'm not doing crazy eye looks, so it is going to take some dedicated use, but I am excited to continue doing this project. And even if I don't get 100% of use from my shades, I think getting use out of shades I might not normally reach for is also a really good goal, and hopefully I will at least get close. But this is only update 2. We have a whole year still ahead of us, so I'm excited to keep this project going. Let me know what you guys thought of this update, what you think of my progress. Give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future uploads. And with all of that said, I will see you in my next video. Bye!